So today is going to be a very short Dharma talk. So did it stop snowing?
It's coming a little bit. It's not
Okay.
sticking.
Well, it was for Michael. That's why he had to leave, because he got to go up the mountain. And they said it was pretty bad. So
Yeah.
we don't know.
Okay.
But the thing is, the temperature is it's freezing now,
Oh,
right? So even if it's wet, I don't want people to be out. So thank you so much. When I was in church, I used to love to go when, the weather was bad or things like that, because, I felt like and it was true. It always happened that something extraordinary would happen because we made our way out, um, um, in a difficult situation. I came expecting it, I came looking for my miracle. And I just keep that attitude today. Maybe I hold things a little differently, but faith in the Dharma or whatever you hold fast to as the truth. I mean, you have to have some faith or confidence, and otherwise give it up. Get something else that you can have confidence in. That's all I say. You might have time to change later, but right now, you can't be all in if you're not really all in. And so a lot of us don't make as much progress on the path. We are making progress. Sometimes we can't see that we're making progress because we know if we know some of our defilements, and they're very clear to us. I got a text from a student today, and she said, I stuck my foot in my mouth last night, and I'm so tired of these tendencies, and I just want to be done with them. Now I'm glad that I got that email, because that's actually what my Dharma talk was going to be on today. So I know it's at least for one person. And I wanted to talk, and I very rarely talk about the Four Noble Truths. But I do want to take us back to the Four Noble Truths and tie that into mindfulness. Because whenever the Buddha was talking about mindfulness in the suttas, it was always mindful of something, so it was tied to something. It wasn't like mindfulness as a system, but it was connected with things to be reflectively present or reflectively aware. And for that, you have to have something that you are focused on. So sometimes we talk about meditation is like this total non-attachment, but that's an empty kind of that's an empty kind of state. There needs to be something that one is reflective about in order to create the conditions for there to be change in our cultivation, like how we walk things out in our behavior. If we just go to a blank screen and for whatever, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour a day, 2 hours, or several hours, and then come back into our ordinary life, we haven't done anything. And it shows up when we're trying to use the principles that we know. We can't use them because we haven't uh, um, made the proper application. We haven't applied ourselves in the right way to be able to walk it out. So rather than think about emptiness, Sister, a tissue, please. Instead of thinking about emptiness in the beginning, you know, a realization of that has to dawn. You can't think about emptiness. I mean, like, your brain's not going to be able to go there. But what we could think about is in meditation, we could say non-attachment, you know, that non-attachment can become we can become aware of a need to disengage from the way we hold to things, right? And we can see that we are not the aggregates, and that will start taking us towards understanding non-self or emptiness of self. And so you could say then that the Buddha Dharma is actually certainly it's a collection of methods, you know, by which we can enter a state of non-attachment, and it first can become visible to us in the exercise of meditation. And I won't say the practice of meditation, because I think there needs to be a distinction between practice and meditation. In one of the, I think was up in the beginning of the Middle Length Discourses, the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha said to his disciples, he said, you all call that meditating practice. He said, but I don't call it practice. He said, I call it a pleasant abiding here and now. And he said, oh, it's a sutta called effacement. Effacement means the rubbing out of self in this particular instance. So the rubbing out of self. How do we get rid of this notion that we are a fixed, individuated self? You know, I mean, how do we really get a glimpse that we are not that? And so Lucida and I were talking yesterday, and I hope I have I might not have. Well, a disciple asked the Buddha, how does he said, who craves? That's what he asked the Buddha. He said, who is it that craves? And the Buddha said, that's not a fit question. So every question doesn't need an answer. Sometimes it's just not the right question. In this case, the Buddha understood what he was trying to ask, and he helped him ask the right question. He said, that's not a fit question. He said, when I'm talking to you, and I'm talking about craving, I'm not saying that there is someone who craves. If I were saying someone craves, which is what we say all the time, right? Like, I'm craving, you're craving, everybody's craving. He says, but now this was for instruction, not for colloquial use of conversation. Of course, when we're in conversation, we say I and you and we and them and they and us, and as a point of reference for relationship. He said, but don't get it wrong. It's not really that. So he said, if if I were saying there is someone who craves, then that question would be a fit one. Who, Buddha, craves? Who is it that craves? He said, and I am not saying that, but if you were to ask thus, conditioned by what, Lord, is craving, then this would be a fit question for you. So he was saying it's not who is craving, but by what process does craving come about? That's the question. And he said craving, then that would have a fit answer. And that answer would be craving conditioned by feeling is craving, or craving is conditioned by feeling. Now, if we just ended the Dharma talk right there, so you don't have a whole lot of things in your head, and you just had that one thing all this week, whenever any kind of aversion would arise, any kind of perplexity, any kind of anguish, any kind of sorrow, any kind of sadness, any kind of perplexity, any kind of anger, any kind of anything arose that you would consider a taint or a behavior that you're working to overcome. If you ask the question, by what did this arise, or conditioned by what did this anger or sorrow or confusion or fear or whatever, by what was the condition? What brought it into existence? He said the answer to that is feeling. So if I didn't go to justification for why Pannavati should not be treated so badly, or if I didn't go into a justification, well, I have a right to be sad because, or justification for my fear because it's troubling times, or just, he's saying if I instead went to the process of how that comes into manifestation, then I'd have a refuge. I'd have someplace to go. I'd have something to hang my hat on. He said it is conditioned from feeling. And if I turn my attention to feeling instead of what I wanted to be happening in this moment, it would create a kind of visible non-attachment. That's our practice. That's what we have to do. But no, we got to talk about it. We got to call somebody, or at least we'll think, we'll ponder, we'll take some notes. We'll, if it became automatic for us, the minute some kind of unsatisfactory thought arose, or we saw some situation as troublesome to us, if we asked, by what means did this arise? He said, the answer is feeling. So we talk about the 12 links of dependent origination. And I think an easier way to know them, or to go right to the link where the chain needs to be cut, is using the 6 sets of 6, which is, it's around, somewhere around Sutta 155 in the Majjhima Nikaya, but that's the name of the Sutta, the 6 sets of 6. And you could like Google that, or you can find it in the Majjhima Nikaya. And it talks about the internal base, and that could be the eye, the ear. It could be our thinking faculty, that, so that we have a thought, the eye sees something, the ear hears something, our thinking faculty allows a thought to come together through our, and we're not even talking about faulty perception now. Let's just say something real is happening, like out there in the world today, a lot real is happening. But I'm talking about how not to lose your mind in the process. But so something is really happening. We're not pretending nothing is happening, but he says, just think of it this way: the internal base meets the external base. That means the eye sees something, mind thinks something, the body senses something, internal base meets the external base. Consciousness arises, and that has some perception and thought wrapped up in it, right? Internal base meets the external base, consciousness arises, and the three of these make contact. So if the eye didn't see something, there would be no contact, right? And if, let's see, the internal base from the external base, consciousness arises, right? And if I didn't have an experience, a prior experience that helps me to recognize what I see, like a baby, you tell the baby's looking at the gas stove on, and they sees all the pretty colors, the blue flame, the yellow flame, and you say, don't touch that, that's hot. First thing the baby does is stick their hand in, because they don't have a reference for hot. But once they touch it, they will know. And so if the internal base meets the external base and consciousness arises, the three of those will make contact. Any one of those missing, you won't have what? Contact. You won't have contact. Okay. But because we do use our thinking faculty that's tied up with perception and ordinary mind, let's say we're constantly having contact, just constant contact. So internal base with external base, consciousness arises. The three of these make contact. And with contact comes feeling. So how does feeling arise?
From that contact.
From contact, right? Okay. And when feeling arises, it produces something. This is all just a process. It ain't like you're a bad person. This is how it is naturally, And so once one has feeling, feeling produces either
Craving.
I like it, I don't like it. If I like it, I want more of it. If I don't like it, I want it to not be happening, or I want it to go away. So we either have attachment, if we like it, or aversion if we don't. I mean, this is like really, really simple. Attachment or aversion. So if you think about mindfulness in a sense, not the total sense, but in one sense, it can be considered the application of non-attachment, and that becomes visible, or that one should bring to the surface in the meditation. And so we're not just sitting there, but thoughts will come. We recognize that that's a thought, and it has come about through the contact of internal base and external base and consciousness. That's why the thought is there. If you itch, it's the same thing. Of course, I believe you can just do that and be done with it and don't have to miss a beat. But those who feel like, okay, you can't move, can't scratch, you can go ahead and do that. It could, I tell you, there is a place where there is the stilling of sensations, like how when you be trying to sit in a lotus or half lotus and you just aching. But if you get in to this zone through reminding yourself that there is not a self, there are only these processes, there comes a space where you will not have the feeling. You will not. I remember the first time that it happened to me because I didn't believe it, because I've been sitting for years. And but one day I was just sitting there and my legs weren't completely down. They're sort of like this. They just did like this. And there was no feeling. But when we started looking at the jhanas, you see where pain leaves, right? And I think that's either in the third jhana or the top end of the second jhana or the third jhana. I'm forgetting some of the facts, but one thing I know is experience trumps facts. That's what I can tell you. So at least I had the experience of it. That's why I know it's a real thing. That's why I know it can happen. And then when the meditation was over, because I was able to sit then I could sit, a long time, nothing was bothering me. And when I went to get up, legs weren't asleep, nothing. It was just, and it was wonderful. Now, that doesn't happen all the time. Matter of fact, it doesn't happen most of the time. So I do the second best thing is I don't meditate like on hard cushion or on the floor. I do it on the bed, and I have a foam topper that's about this. So when I do it, my ankles are resting in the foam topper. I'm sitting on an angle so that my legs can press or have 3 points, like 2 knees, and your tailbone sort of create a triangular, position, so that the back is straight, the knees are on the soft cushion, and I can stay there for a long time. Not so much when I come to the Dharma hall, because I don't have all my stuff. I don't have my foam and I don't have, my pillow, but, this is 2025. So, we have comforts and conveniences. Suffering is not the objective of meditation. So do whatever makes it easy for you to get, into that space. So there you go. Internal base means external consciousness arises 3 of those to make contact, and with contact comes feeling. That's pleasant, unpleasant, and neither pleasant nor unpleasant, right? And with the feeling comes craving for more of it or for it to go away. So what the Buddha said is, if you want a shortcut to this whole process, cut it before craving. That's all you gotta do, just focus right there. That's it. So that's why I say, yeah, I mean, if you,
Just that.
yeah, I mean, don't go all around Robin Hood's barn. You don't have to do a thesis. You don't have to read 15 books. You don't have to know 99 facts. No, you don't have to, do that and see what happens in your life. And so, a lot of times people ask me, like, they come in and they want right away, what book should I read? It's not the problem is not with your head. It's not even about not knowing enough. It's can't put into practice what you do know. We can't put into practice just something that will change your world. It will change your reality. Even if you don't do it all the time. All it's got to do is change it one time. And you know what's possible. Even if you don't always do it. Even if you fall short. You can't, once you see something, you cannot unsee it. You can choose to not put in the effort, or the conditions may not be right for you to be able to put, an appropriate effort into something. Sometimes the conditions just don't allow, and part of that is we want it to change to meet our conditions, especially if it's a good thing, but good things and bad things come about through causes and conditions. So we can't deny that they have a right to be present. And that could be hard to accept, but we just have to recognize the truth of that. And we need to do something different, if we want to see a different condition. And it might take time, for things to turn in another direction. Sometimes things look like they're going bad, or maybe they are going bad, but it's bad for a short while that allows something good or something better or something that would not have had the opportunity to come in if that had not happened. You're trying to explain things to people, they don't get it. I bet you some folks are getting something now. I think they understand there's something now that our talk could help them understand. So sometimes we suffer. Yeah. But if I ask the question, who is it that suffers? Then I see I'm asking the wrong question. It is by what means does suffering come? That's the question. So the Buddha talked about the Four Noble Truths, the truth of suffering, and suffering has a cause, and basically whatever has a cause, that can be an end to it, right? And there is a path leading to the end to it. Basically, that's, in so many words, what the Four Noble Truths are. I like to call them the ennobling truths, And the reason I call them ennobling is because they're not like four statements of truth. They are actually they are instructions for behavior. Because he said the first noble truth, which is the truth of suffering, the first noble truth is to be fully understood. Said the second noble truth has causes, suffering has cause. The second was to be abandoned. Said the third, or the abandoning of the second truth would lead to the third task or duty, which is come to the realization that there is a way out. And the fourth is you have to actually take the way out. It is to be developed. So the first noble truth is to be realized or fully understood. The second was to be abandoned. The third is to attain the realization of it through walking it out. And the fourth is the only way that you can realize it is that you have to develop yourself. Now, that's enough. They don't need to read a book. They just need to have the Four Noble Truths and start working on those four things. Now, that doesn't tickle the fancy of the intellect, but it's only through taking these four actions, undertaking these four tasks, will we be able to see the truth of the Dharma and bring ourselves to a point of liberation. So sometimes we have to circle back around because we didn't learn all kinds of stuff now, you know. And I'm not talking about the last 2 years. I mean, throughout our whole Buddhist, you know, we read, I don't know, 1,000 books and, you know, and we've got a lot of stuff in our head. But can we simply do this? One day, for everything that comes up, whether you liked it or didn't like it, whether you had an aversion to it or an attachment to it, how we even see our partners, how we even see, ultimately, ourselves. I'll tell you the truth, I am real. I am here, right here in front of you, having a conversation with you. So don't think I'm not here, because then we get into a kind of dead kind of emptiness, and now we're just lost. So you have to understand you have to understand emptiness and marvelous existence. And those two balance each other out. You only got emptiness. That's why a lot of luckily, we have a lot of teachings that have passed down over the years, and sometimes when a master had a great realization, it was a realization of how to kind of explain something provisionally to his students that they could understand and make progress on the path. It was like a child asking a grown-up question, like they can't handle the answer. So you don't give them that answer, but you find something fitting for their mentality and for their level of understanding. And that can be added to later, as early as tomorrow, but sometimes not for years, And so if we understand the teachings in this way, we don't need so many. We just need to perfect a few. And when we perfect that few, our state shifts so that we can perceive through prajna other things that somebody might have to be taught that. But you get it. It's so clear to you. I mean, you can see it without even being taught. Or when you are taught, like you really, really get it in a deep way. So we're all in the water, some doing breaststroke, some like right under the surface, and they come up for air and keep going. Some dive deep, but it's still in the water, what I'm saying. We're just still all in the water. So we need to take what we need, and then you say, well, how do I know what we need? That's why I said we need each other. And that's the purpose of the teacher. To help the one who doesn't know what they need. But if they want to argue for what they need, what they think they need, then they can go and try anything and see how that works. And I want them to. I tried lots of things, still trying things. Some of it works for me, some of it doesn't. So I'm not taking away anybody's right to investigate anything, to read anything. I'm just saying, don't get confused and don't get lost in the words. Don't even get lost in the teachings. That's our conversation around the Vinaya. It's like the Vinaya is for helping people sustain themselves in the Dharma. The Dharma is not for the Vinaya. The Vinaya is an aid to the Dharma, but you get that mixed up. Then you got legalism and you got, rights and rules and rituals, and you have all those things, but no prajna, no real life. So it doesn't mean we need to get rid of the Vinaya, even though a lot of it is apocryphal. A lot of it was written after the Buddha's time. So if you want to do something and about understanding that, then get scholarly and find out when most of that was written. So this is a very simple lesson today that I want to, he talked about the right understanding. So if there's right understanding, then there can be wrong understanding. Yeah. Sometimes we can understand something, but we don't understand it rightly. So the Buddha said, when he asked who craves, he said, that's not a fit question. Can you say to yourself when you're looking for the reason why you're doing something, why am I doing this? Can you say to yourself, that's not a fit question, Pannavati? The question is, by what means does this make its appearance? Does this manifest? And that'll take me from me to the process. Now, once we know the process, we don't have to go around saying the process is craving, No, now we can just go back to being, just be ordinary. But we know what we mean, you see. That's the difference. So the words then become insufficient when they are activated, and become the truth. The words that describe this truth that's being walked out becomes insufficient. But to the one who has it inside, it is powerful to the pulling down of strongholds in our lives. So the first noble truth The truth of suffering is to be understood. When one understands to the degree or the extent that one understands, they uproot suffering. But suppose they got that part, but the second one was to be what? Abandoned. I get it, but I don't abandon. Every time something comes up, like I just dive in my usual way, you know, tell myself so much is going on, I can't handle it, or whatever, or I need to do this, or I need to do that, you know. And not as I'm not saying you don't do something. I'm saying you don't let the motivation be your fear, your anger, your disgust, your desire, your craving. That's what I'm saying. And a matter of fact, if you wanted to abate so that you can use your critical thinking skills to figure out what to do next, you know, now is a good time to use them. So, seconds to be abandoned. The third is, actually the second, when you abandon it, he's almost giving you the secret ingredient in the sauce, because this abandoning actually paves the way for realization. The things that bring us suffering can't not bring us suffering. We have to abandon our attachment to the way we're thinking for there to be relief from the suffering. So when we abandon, it opens the door to realization, to having a direct experience of the peace that you can have. Now, it's amazing to me that whenever we're talking about, like, I'll just say loosely, spiritual things, there's always a given in the conversation around spiritual things, that it can be spiritual as long as it meets our science. Or it can be, you know, spiritual. I was listening to a talk yesterday, and someone was talking. Oh no, it was an article, and I love Popular Mechanics. You know, it's become a good magazine. I mean, it was a crap magazine when I was little. I mean, we were race car junkies, you know, so we had Popular Mechanics for car mechanics and stuff like that. But now it's a really good scientific journal as far as that goes. But it was talking about something about they had found the hormone, the psychedelic hormone that makes you have an out-of-body experience. And it's a hormone that activates when you're dying, that makes you think you're seeing heavenly states. You know, I mean, you couldn't actually be seeing them, right? I mean, because there's no such thing as heavenly states, right? You couldn't. So we've got to find something in the physical body now that helps us have any kind of sense of there being any other spatial realm besides this, you know, this worldly realm. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, we have a long way to go with our science. It's so shallow. You know, we can't think that there's any intelligent life on other planets, that this is as far as intelligentsia goes, as far as our elevator goes. I mean, why would there be this whole expansive? zillions of universes just for us little earthlings. I mean, some things just don't make sense. I mean, we don't even have to talk about it, but it just doesn't. We should just say, I don't know, you know. And not poo-poo be so easy, I see your hand, not be so easy to denigrate and put down and categorically deny and call a delusion just because some people do touch something, you know, that for the masses is untouchable because we're so deluded. Yes.
Well, it was just a little thought about the hormone,
Mhm.
you know,
I'm not sure it was a hormone,
or whatever,
but they,
the
yeah, they said
enzyme,
something.
you know.
They said something. Mhm.
Perhaps the experience of that heavenly state triggers the hormone.
Yeah, well, I would think so.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm on the spiritual side, you know. So I'm going to I mean, someone going to Emory in the morning. So and I'm actually looking forward, sort of. I'm looking forward to it, you know. Um, I like to go to universities. Mhm. And only because I can speak my truth about unapologetically, you know, and sometimes somebody gets something. I mean, the young people have an enormous potential for faith to arise in them, confidence, you know, that there's something more than what we've figured out. And from time to time, they need to hear somebody say that, you know. Um, and I'm not saying don't get educated, you know, but don't, um, I, I stopped putting down my degrees. No, in the beginning, I thought I needed them, you know, um, to go to universities because I used to go to a lot of them. And then one day I asked myself, how much of this did I get from the universities that gave me those degrees? None of it. So they did not apply. They applied to my worldly life, and that was in the way that I'm still in a worldly life, but that was papers for that. You know, and then I stopped using them. I said they get no credit for this. This credit goes to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. They saved my life. So,
Venerable,
yes.
just another thought on out of body stuff. You know, in some ways, it seems to me like if we're still a living body that sort of bears my temporal identity, we have a transcendent experience of some sort, any sort.
Can you be heard?
Yeah, just.
You might have to talk a little louder, Jim, because I want them to
If we're
hear
in a
you.
body and have a transcendent experience of any sort, it would be surprising if there were not a physiological correlate
Mhm.
to that. I think the problem is when we start to say the physiological aspect of it, that's all it is, that a transcendental experience is nothing but the reductionistic kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm.
That's where mistakes are made.
Yeah, which is sort of like where we are. I mean, they'll give us a little bit of ground, but we just have a little bit of ground. They um, and it's true. I mean, and you can have a very minor experience that will completely change your perspective on things. You know, from the inside. I mean, sometimes it can be so minuscule that it's not even worth telling anybody, but you had it, you know, and it has changed the way you see the world and the way that you hold and understand things. I mean, it can be so minuscule that you can't even carve it out to stake a claim on it, you know, but somewhere in there, something has shifted, even though one time Jesus was a blind man came to him and he asked him to heal him, and Jesus made a mixture of spittle and dirt and made a pack on his eyes. And then he told him to go wash and come back and tell him. He said, and he came back. He said, "How do you see now?" He said, "I see men like trees," meaning like, you know, still wasn't seeing clearly, and so he did it again and told him to go wash, and he then came back, and now he could see clearly. So sometimes we don't see something clearly, but we get an indication that shifts our consciousness. Now, what the Buddha says is that part of what allows us to be able to sustain these shifts in consciousness is like our body. You know, it serves a purpose here. I mean, we its condition affects our capacities. And it says some of these things you won't be able to enter to, not because like you don't have the confidence. It's not because you don't understand it, but some of your machinery's not working well enough. So he says that the body and the mind have to be transformed. And so I've never been one to take care of my body, and I'm still here, you know. But now I have more of an intention and a respect towards it because I read that one little line about the body needing to be transformed to be able to contain as a living vessel here, to be able to contain the information and the wisdom. So I'm making an endeavor to be more conscientious, you know, about my health. It doesn't short circuit, you know, plans that we're making, but it means I can make better use of the time that I'm here. You know, it's like, I don't think you really have to die from anything. I think you can just go. A lot of the Buddha's disciples, they didn't understand this, so they got on the empty, like nothing side of this in their mindfulness practice. And when they saw the Dharmakaya, when they saw their, you know, original nature and the emptiness of self, I mean, they really understood it. So then they said, "Oh, nothing else to do, we just commit suicide." And they did. A lot of them, so many that he had to tell them, "Y'all can't do that anymore. You just have to walk out this karma," you know, because it's not the right example for people, you know, and it's not the right thing to do. Of course, because you have actually seeing the Dharmakaya, the emptiness of self, you know, then who is it that you're killing? You know, it's nobody. But for the sake of those who haven't realized emptiness, you know, you need to walk out your time. Now, that to me is a bodhisattva, you know, duty, if for one who could understand that and receive it, as opposed to the selfishness of I'm finished, and there is a heaven for those who are finished to that degree, but that's not a Buddha. So, so I can see all throughout the Theravada, the tradition of the elders, I can see, even if you're just reading between the lines, if you've been fortunate enough to find a teacher that you have confidence in, that you can learn from them, and you can ponder the things that they share with you, that your mind can mix with their mind. And what that does for you, it allows you to go into places that you got to have a special pass, and your teacher's mind is your pass, PASS, So all the time, I'm thinking, like when I think I don't know something or I don't know enough, I take reliance. Now I never met Shakyamuni, but I did meet Buddha Master. And I take reliance in his wisdom, in his mind, so that my mind can, to the extent it can, meld with his mind. So that I can be in the vicinity of a kind of prajna that reveals something to me. I don't think of it as worship in the way I understood worship in the past, but I certainly ascribe worth to it. And when I ascribe worth to it, and I enter into just whatever worthiness I give it, and not him alone, but some other great masters like Jason Copper, Talopa, Milarepa. There are many different ones. This, before we can become distinctive in our non-attachment, first we have to have certain things. For instance, like we're talking about, feeling leads to craving, and cutting it right there between feeling and craving. He said, just say a feeling is just a feeling. That was, he said, like, well, how am I supposed to think about this? He said, just call a feeling a feeling. You don't have to think about it much beyond that. And having it will either lead you towards something or away from something. That's it, aversion or attachment. We don't have to hit the ball out of the park. We can keep it in close proximity, and keep it, in our hand and use it different ways. That's beneficial in how we walk out our daily life. That's it. So I think sometimes that every time we learn something, we say, this is the answer, and this is the only answer. This is the only answer for all time. I almost regret that anybody asked me a question now, because even though I don't know all of the answers, I know that I don't know all of the answers, and I can give an answer, but that might not, because I'm not a Buddha, might not be the best answer to give them. you know? So I kind of feel like people need to kind of figure out, first figure out the right question to ask, and then pose the question. And I trust that the Dharma is attractive to whatever or whoever is seeking it. I really do. So remember that the aggregates, you know, um, we sense them at different moments as I and me and mine. That's a real thing. We really, really do. But we have to remember also that they're just a constellation of natural processes. And that's the law of Dharma, or the natural law, or the law of nature, or the law of the universe. So can we hold both of those? In time, we don't hold both of those. In time, they come into a singular formation. And it's like a globe. We can see all sides. There's no angles that keep it where we can't see around the corner. We can just see all sides of a thing. And we know how to apply something in this moment, in this situation, concerning these people here, you know, or concerning myself even. I think and that will help uproot for us this classification of a self, and yet we don't have to walk around this world acting crazy, like I don't exist, or speaking in the third person, or you know, or whatever. And I'll tell you that the path gets to be extremely enjoyable, you know. And when we don't know something, and we know that there's an answer, but sometimes we don't even know the question, you know, but there's something that we're reaching for, and we get a little bit dissatisfied, or we get in a hurry, you know. That's when we can settle back and even ask the question, what do I need to know now? What is troubling me? Sometimes we don't even know what's on our mind. We don't know what's bothering us. We just know it's something. Well, sometimes it's really some pressing things that every day we have to get up and go on anyway. And some days we just don't feel like it, you know, but we have to get up anyway. But if we do, and we have this kind of Dharma action in our pocket, it's not just an intellectual thing, but that we're taking these actions, we're putting some action behind what we think is true, then you will see it break forth in your life, and there'll not be anything that comes up in your life that you can't handle, that you can't accommodate. And that's the greatest gift on this level, at least. There's nothing that comes in a day that can beat me down. That's our power. That's one of our superpowers. Right? Now that doesn't have a ism or ist tied to it. So now we're going way beyond some thoughts of spirituality, you see, or religion, or whatever we want to call it. You know, we can put it over into the science realm and call it, dimensions of higher consciousness, none of that. I just know that the only thing that can break me in life is what I choose to give in. That's it. It's not possible. You can't take it from me. The ones who run our government can't take the joy I have. The world didn't give it to me, so the world can't take it away. The peace that I have, the world didn't give it to me, so the world can't take it away. I can always find a city of refuge right here, right now. And that is priceless. Whether I can articulate it or not, to live it is divine. Anybody like to say anything?
I would.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I was thinking is you can't jump from suffering to the Eightfold Path. There's very deep,
I get it.
deep, I guess, discovery of the cause. Like getting clearer and clearer of the cause that sometimes it's easier to jump to the next thing instead of going deeper in understanding, having awareness of the cause. So, I'd rather practice the Eightfold Path than actually dive deep and find out what the cause is that's causing the suffering.
He said that suffering should be understood. Understood is not necessarily knowing all of the factors and conditions by which it arose. It's about knowing the remedy for it, So I think it can be useful for people to try to figure out. But I mean, how far are you gonna go back? You can go back to the beginning of this life? That ain't that far. That's like, so I think sometimes it can be useful to try to help a person, especially when they're in their head, to understand, some things, but it's not understanding the specific thing that causes something. It's understanding the law that governs something, and so, the law that governs, if I understand that law governs, and I accept that that law governs, and I'm gonna be law abiding, I mean, I watch these shows on TikTok, these little things, and these people, they just be aggravating the police, like they're filming inside a government building, or, the police will pull them over for something. And they talking about, well, the highways are for public transportation of commercial vehicles, and I'm driving my car, so I'm not required to have tags. Or, and they come up with all of these things. And and it, and I know my rights, and when sometimes, not all of it, but some of it doesn't have to escalate, into something. I just need to know that if the state has given someone a badge that says they can pull me over and arrest me, then I need to respect them. That's the first step. I'm gonna try that first. I'm not gonna try to pull the law on them. I'm gonna try to be respectful to them, and that's a simple thing. you know, so I mean, I get out of so many scrapes,
Mhm.
no, speeding. Officer, I'm so sorry, I was trying to get to Dharma class and I'm late and everybody's already there. And he's kind of like, yeah, I saw you speeding the other day too. I said, you got to slow down. Okay, officer. That's it. I'm not which do you have a radar gun? Can you tell me what speed I was going? You know, like some people will get into all that. What I'm saying is while we may not know the specific reason for something, if we know the the principle that applies and we apply the antidote, thanks to the good favor of our teacher, then that's a shortcut. It's a hack. You can go that way too. So you can choose which way you go. But I agree with you, you know. Yeah, I would just rather not go down some roads, particularly if they're not gonna tell the whole story. I don't know what mind stream I came in here with. Have some guesses. Some of my guesses are good and some of them are bad. Like I was, you know, like either devil or came from an Asura realm or came from a heavenly realm, you know, because I like certain things. And some of those things are good, you know, some of those things are not good. But wherever I was before, my mind was sure in them, you know. And I sure didn't have it here in this world. So where did that come from? The longing for that, to return to that, for the comfort that I find in it. Like I know that, you know. So I know that this mind stream came in with some stuff, you know, but it doesn't matter. We just call, Buddha said, well, okay, how far back do you want to go? Last life, last 10 lives, last 100 lives, last 100,000 lives, last million, just call it beginningless time and be done with it. And focus right here on taking the antidote. That's what. And the more we work at doing that, the better we become at doing that. And then we don't really sweat the small stuff. Where I'm insufficient, I'm insufficient. I'll just keep working on it, you know. I'll try to do better, but I'm not judging myself on that. I just recognize, Pannavati, you need to work on that, seriously. Yeah. And if I keep saying that, even if I'm doing the thing that's contrary to what I think I should do, or behaving in a way that's contrary to the way that I really want to work, if I met it every time that's where vows and precepts come in, you know? That's why we need them, because they remind us. They remind us. And they keep us fenced in until we can, our mind automatically leans or inclines in a way that's beneficial to us. But until then, we have the precepts to guide us. And then we get inspired as we see our growth and progress, that brings on the vow, you know? And so just taking it in that easy way, but very serious, dedicated and committed way, you know, we make progress. And I'm talking about real progress that we can see and know here and now. And we become helpful to other people, you know. So when we go to Mars, they want to know about, you know, it's always like that with universities. And that's why I said no in the beginning, but they want to know about feeding you know, people in India and the schools in India and the nuns, ordaining nuns, and you know, this thing, I've been there, done that, did that. I want to talk about the Dharma, so I'm going to. But I will answer, you know, some questions because we think that's the only way we help in these human ways, you know. But and we should help in these ways. But anybody can do that, you know? But to want to excel in the Dharma light, I mean, Dharma brightness light, not LITE, to want to be in the Dharma light so that you can activate and utilize, manifest, shouldn't use that word, but bring to the forefront the uncommon attainments, you know, what somebody's not willing to give up their life to do, you know, what someone's not willing to lay aside, you know, certain relationships and things that they're involved in to do, you know, it has its reward, you know. So I'm poor, I understand that saying, let the poor say, I am rich. Okay, so that's it for today. Does anybody else have anything you want to say? If not, somebody would close us out.
Whatever merit we have earned from our time together and our listening to this Dharma, we dedicate to the good and the well-being of all beings everywhere. May the seeds grow in us so that those beings can experience this through our Dharma light.